Yes, Chair McCoy, I believe we do.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Parks, Recreation and Arts Commission meeting. I now will call this meeting of the Parks, Recreation and Arts Commission meeting to order. Secretary Clerk, can you please do a roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Parks,
Present.
Commissioner Barraza,
Present.
Commissioner Singh,
Present.
Commissioner Cummings,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Apuda. Not here at this time. Vice Chair Dolan,
Here.
Chair McCoy.
Present.
And Chair McCoy, I'd like just to make an announcement that Commissioner Vang will not be in attendance today.
Thank you. We will now begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please stand? All right, ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will start with the approval of the agenda. Secretary, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dolan. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Cummings.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Secretary Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Commissioner Parks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza,
Yes.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
I believe Commissioner Apuda is still absent. Commissioner or Vice Chair Dolan
Yes.
and Chair McCoy.
Yes. We will now move on to approval of minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes, April 18th, 2022?
There are no changes.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes. This is Cummings.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Is there a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Parks.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Secretary Clerk, would you please conduct a roll call vote?
Commissioner Parks?
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza,
Aye.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan,
Yes.
and Chair McCoy.
Yes. We will now move on to our subcommittee reports. This item is a discussion item for the commission and no public comments will be taken related to this item. Does the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee have any update it would like to provide to the commission?
This is Commissioner Parks. I'll do a quick update on behalf of Commissioner Vang and our group. So I understand that the City Council approved the contract with the contractor consultant that we recommended at the last meeting, and we are in the process of scheduling a meeting to do the kickoff work for that project.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks, for the update. Does the Parks Master Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission?
I don't believe there's anything to report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. We will now move on to member reports and comments. As a reminder, this is a time for commission members to report anything they feel important for the public or commission to know, but is not a time for discussion. Commissioner Barraza, do you have any reports or comments you would like to make?
Yes, Madam Chair, I wanted to express my appreciation to the city of Fresno and the many residents, organizations that participated in the Beautify Fresno effort last Saturday. It was beautiful. I mean, excuse the double meaning there, but I really feel that it allowed community members to be part of the community in an effort that they give up their Saturday to be part of this cleanup event, and I think it's very positive that we all feel proud of the areas where we live, that our community that's called Fresno. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Peraza. Commissioner Cummings, do you have any comments you would like to make to this commission?
Oh, I'd just like to second what Commissioner Barraza was talking about. There were like 1,400 people across the city of Fresno and various areas picking up trash, and somewhere like 12,000 pounds of trash. And we planted a few trees along with that. So it's just really great to be out there with the public and enjoying sort of that positive community spirit. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Commissioner Miller, do you have any reports or comments you would like to report to the commission?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Parks, do you have any reports or comments you would like to report to the commission?
Thank you. I will third the comments about the Beautify Fresno event on Saturday. The River Parkway Trust had just over 70 volunteers out at Fresno River West who did a great job of cleaning up the property. And I understand from our staff that many were visiting the property for the first time, which was really great. So we were thrilled to be part of that effort. And I also wanted to just take a moment to thank city staff for getting us the presentations on Friday. That is very much appreciated. So we had a little more time to take a look at what was included. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Commissioner Singh, do you have any reports or comments you'd like to make to the commission?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Dr. Apuda has joined us. Do you have any reports or comments you would like to make to the commission?
Thank you. I apologize for my tardiness. My Zoom decided to update right as I was signing on. Yes, I just would like to briefly express my appreciation to the commission members and the staff and those in the audience for your graciousness on my comments last meeting about gendered language. I received some emails and some comments, and I just really appreciate it. I think oftentimes folks don't realize that to bring those kinds of things up can be challenging. So I really appreciate the reception of my comments.
Thank you. And I've been practicing that in my other meetings as I move along, trying to make sure that I'm aware of that. So thank you for raising that. It's really good practice for me as I move along in my other meetings. Thank you. Vice Chair Dolan, do you have any reports or comments you'd like to make to the commission?
Not at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I don't have any reports or comments to make at this time. So now we will move on to City Administration and Parks staff reports and comments. Does anyone from the administration have any reports or comments for the commission?
Thank you, Chair McCoy. TJ Miller, Assistant City Manager. And I just wanted to let everyone know that May 25th, that's a Wednesday, is the day that the mayor will be presenting his budget. So I see that there is a commissioner meeting on May 16th. And then I believe the next one scheduled after that would be June 6th. So I just wanted to let you know the date. Perhaps you may want to discuss at the next meeting, doing a special meeting on the 25th in the evening or a few days after that, so that you can get that information presented to you specifically and in more detail related to the parks items.
Thank you. And you said it'll be done on May 25th, correct?
Yes, May 25th is when that is scheduled.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone from the park staff have any reports or comments for the commission?
Aldi Ramirez, Parks Assistant Director. I would just like to echo what Commissioner Parks commented on. Can you all hear me? I feel like I have lag. Okay, great. I would just like to echo Commissioner Parks in that the Cultural Arts Plan Consultant Agreement did pass at Council, and appreciate the recommendation from the Commission. So we are hitting the ground running with that. And as Commissioner Parks mentioned, getting a kickoff meeting scheduled there. So we're excited to continue to work with the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee as we move forward, as well as the Fresno Arts Council. And then we are also turning the page and starting to pick back up on the Parks Master Plan Amendment. So we'll have additional communication with the subcommittee there, as well as communication in the near future with the larger commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Aldi. We will now move on to unscheduled communication. Would any member of the public like to speak on any issue within the jurisdiction of this commission? As a reminder, if you have a comment regarding any workshops on the agenda, this is the time to make a comment, as public comments is not taken at the time of the workshops. You will have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair McCoy. We do have one punched up at this time. Lisa Flores. You're unmute.
Good evening, Kimberly, and the rest of you folks at the Measure P, Parks, Recs, and everything else wonderful in Fresno. I just wanted to chime in on the Tower Theater, and I think that using Measure P funds, a portion of Measure P funds in the final purchase of the historic Tower Theater is just a wonderful thing. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the structure of governance over the Tower Theater will go. And I look forward to positive growth because, as many of you know, not only is the Tower Theater an arts venue, a movie venue, a music venue, home to several different businesses in the tower, but it's also the iconic symbol of my neighborhood. It is one of the anchor points. It's the anchor point for the central business district of our community. And I want to thank everybody that got Measure P money and is putting this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, we have Brandy Vegas.
Hi, I will be speaking at the hearing, but I definitely agree with everything that Lisa said. I want to just ask the council, the commission, to see if there are ways that the community can know about different presentations and hearings and whatnot further in advance. I thankfully checked my agendas on Friday and as I go along and want to know what's going on. So I knew on Friday about the agenda, but I know that especially right before the weekend, it doesn't give a lot of time for those who are deeply invested in parks, but we need to make plans to be able to attend for specific items. And I know that it's not rarely ever mentioned, ever posted on the City of Fresno Facebook or social media sites, and would love to see if there would be, I don't know if you already have one, if there is something where we can sign up to, like the anti-displacement committee, to be able to get notifications of meetings and agendas, but also be able to see, even on its own page, a way for the community to be able to engage more, because the work you guys are doing is important and it's wonderful, and I know that so many people were committed to to getting this passed, so would love to be able to see more involvement in there. And just wanted to add that this weekend I took some time with the nice weather to be outside and visited 3 parks that I don't remember the names to, but never been to, that a friend of mine used to frequent in their childhood, and I love the parks in our community and look forward to be able to take my nieces and others to some of these parks in the future. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Brandy. Chair McCoy, at this time, we do not have any further public comment.
This is Commissioner Singh. I wanted a clarification. I wanted to ask a clarification question. So public comment will not be taken after the workshops? Is that what I heard, Chair McCoy?
Yes, that's exactly what you heard. When we have workshops, there are no public comments. Only public comments are provided when we do hearings.
Is it possible to take public comments after workshop for today? I've heard some community members that wanted to just make some comments after the workshops are done. Is it
I will
possible?
refer that to city staff to see if we can make that change. I'm not for sure, so I will refer to city staff.
Yeah, so generally we allow public comment for workshops during unscheduled communication because, again, we are a Brown Act body and workshops are generally non-discussion items. So they have to be agendized differently if they're going to contain full discussions. So this would be the appropriate time for the public to make any comments about workshops.
I mean, like in terms of full discussions, does that include like public comment, even with the commissioners not like responding or the city staff not really like, I mean, like, because we're not really having a discussion. It's more of like, you know, the public making comment, right?
Yeah, the tendency is that then turns into a discussion. So generally, unscheduled communication is a time to make comments on anything other than hearings.
So I do see that we have one hand up, City Clerk. And before we go to that person, I do see that Aaron has had his hand up, I think to respond to our previous resident that made a public comment. So can I go ahead and allow Aaron to respond, and then I would get to Mai after Aaron.
Chair McCoy, thank you. I just wanted to respond that we do utilize social media to post when upcoming meetings are scheduled. I know we had a reminder today as well as Friday when the agenda was publicized. So we do utilize social media to advertise the meetings. So just wanted to make sure that was clear. That's through the park's Instagram pages as well as Facebook. Thank you.
Chair McCoy, I would also like to add that we have the generic email address for the commission. So pracprac@fresno.gov. And that's where, as Brittany mentioned, it being added to like a listserv where emails go out ahead of Monday's meeting. If you email that address asking to be put on that listserv, we can have staff go ahead and do that, and then they can be reminded that way.
Thank you. Before I come to you, Commissioner Barraza, let me go to the public. I do see one hand up.
Mai, you're unmute.
Thank you. Yes. Hi, this is Mai Tao. I attended the last Parks Commission meeting and made some comments regarding the Vanlin issue. So I realize that the issue is listed as a topic of discussion on the agenda, but if there isn't going to be public comments right after the agendized item is discussed, and I just wanted to remind folks that the volleyball players, the Hmong community is still waiting for answers. There are a few of us who are in attendance of the meeting today, and we hope that during the discussion around the Vanlin Parks, that some of the questions that we posed in last meeting could be answered around transparency, around how the decisions were made. We understand that since that meeting, signs have been taken down, but still feel strongly that the signs being taken down is not necessarily a direct resolution to the issues that were at hand regarding reservation disputes. And so I think that the signs escalated that core issue, but taking down the signs is not the ultimate solution, and just wanted to be very clear about that. So before I make any other further comments, would just provide the opportunity for folks to be able to answer that later, since public comment is not allowed later. We are willing to still work with the city parks department and other members of the city through this particular issue. And we hope that we could come together to find long-term solutions regarding the particular situation that occurred at Vanlin, but knowing that this issue is much deeper than that one park and District 4, and that we really hope that this doesn't ever happen again in any other parts of the city of Fresno, and are willing to work with, again, Parks Administration and other parts of the city and council members to ensure that this doesn't happen ever again. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Calvin.
Hi, hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Calvin Zhang. I am a youth Hmong volleyball player who sets up at Vanlin. And I'm here to express that our community was deeply hurt by what has happened, and I would like to ask about the transparency with how decisions were made, and to prevent this from happening ever again to other communities. There's still the issue of the city solution of reserving the court use that is not inclusive of our youths. And that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Barraza, can I go to Christy so she can respond to the public comments, and then I come right back to you? Would that be okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind the public that there is a hearing scheduled for tonight with regard to budget allocation recommendations and capital improvement plans. So if any of your comments have to do with that, then you will have an opportunity, even if it's related to something like a workshop, to make a comment at that time, just not right after the workshop.
Thank you. Commissioner Barraza, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question I have has to do with how does the commission make recommendations to the city of Fresno? For example, we will have a discussion today on the subject of the park ranger program. What if the commission has a recommendation to the city of Fresno, city council, on certain aspects of that program? The way this thing is set up, if it's presented as a workshop, then technically, I guess there's no action that's supposed to take place. So the question is, the very simple question is, how do we make recommendations to the council when this commission may wish to make a recommendation?
Well, recommendations made by this commission would have to fall within the jurisdiction of the commission. If I remember correctly, the park ranger program specifically is required by Measure P. However, there is nothing in Measure P that gives this commission authority to have any recommendations related to how it's set up. However, you could make recommendations related to funding the park ranger program and budget allocations.
So what you're saying, excuse me, just to make sure we understand. So you're suggesting that if there's a recommendation on the part of the commission, that time and place would be like that item we have today, where there's a hearing on the allocations of Measure P. And obviously, I know the Rangers is discussed in Measure P, and I know that we are looking at the possibility of using Measure P funds to fund those programs. So you answered that question. So that is the tool that we have at our disposal to make recommendations. Thank you.
Correct, related to the funding specifically, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Commissioner Barraza. City Clerk, do we have any more hands up for public comment from the public?
We do not have any more public comment.
Thank you. We will now move on to workshops. 10-A ID number 22-682, workshop citywide park rangers program. Would a member of the Parks Department please begin the presentation?
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Brianna, do I have sharing rights, or are you going to share it?
Give me 1 second. Okay, now you should have rights. Go ahead.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Good evening, Aaron Aguirre, Parks Director. With me today, I have Lieutenant Jordan Beckford. She will be speaking to the technical portion of the presentation on the staffing, vehicles, and kind of the layout. So we're excited to bring this to you today. I know it's been long awaited, Commissioner Barraza. The day is here, so we will go ahead and begin. So the citywide park ranger program falls into the Fresno Clean and Safe Neighborhood Parks Transaction Use Tax Measure P. As you know, the expenditure plan, the 6 buckets as we refer to, this falls under Section 1, Improving and Maintaining Safe, Clean Neighborhood Parks and Playgrounds. So I've highlighted the section where the Park Ranger program is listed and funded. So the Park Ranger program, what we're looking to do here is ensure the safety of our users. City's Park Rangers will patrol our neighborhood and regional parks on foot, bicycles, off-road vehicles, and work jointly with the Parks Department as well as other stakeholder groups. In addition to that, the Park Rangers will support and engage the community in the activities within our parks, facilitate awareness and educational uses of our parks and the proper use of parks, and have that interaction with our park users, that community engagement that we're looking for. The Park Ranger roles will be to provide the community the opportunity to enjoy a safe and enjoyable park throughout positive community relations. As mentioned, they will ensure patron safety by conducting perimeter and interior patrols, foot patrols of the parks, our skate parks, our gyms, community centers, and other parks facilities. In addition to that, our park rangers will also be utilized at citywide special events, verifying park usage permits, public events, locking, unlocking of gates, and any of our organized sports activities at whether it's a sports complex or any neighborhood park where we have league play. In addition to that, we just recently had Easter upon us. And with that, we had PD on site as well as security. And the park rangers will definitely have a major role when it comes to our major holidays that are conducted in our parks. So wanted to go through just our inventory of our parks, what we have throughout the city. So our pocket parks, these are ½ acre to 1 acre, serve a small area. We have 22 of those throughout the city. Our neighborhood parks, these are 2 to 10 acres. Typically, you'll see these with kind of a social focal point in the surrounding neighborhood. Oftentimes, they'll have a multi-purpose room or some sort of a center. We have 43 of those throughout the city. Community parks, these are 10 to 40 plus acres. These serve a large area-wide functions, programs for outdoors, and also community centers. And then, of course, we have our 3 regional parks. These are from 40 acres all the way to beyond 1,000 acres, and that serves the region. And those 3, as you all know, are Woodward, Roding, and the Regional Sports Complex. So this next slide, I want Lieutenant Beckford to come in, but just wanted to kind of highlight some of the numbers we have here. As you can see, the trends are, since 2018, have gone up. And in the past just 4 months of this year, we're looking at probably about $100,000 worth of damage to our parks. Those are broken windows, doors, graffiti, Cadillac converters that have been stolen from vehicles. Oftentimes, it's not just the vandalism, it's the park asset being down for maintenance or having to be repaired. For instance, Willow Bulch, we had a tot lot that was set on fire. So while that cost is still coming in, now we have a park with 1 less tot lot. So in addition to the monetary value, it's also the assets that are no longer in service until we can get these back up and running. So just wanted to kind of highlight that for you here on this slide. But Lieutenant Beckford will go through this next piece of the presentation and kind of walk you through the layout of the Park Ranger program. Lieutenant Beckford.
All right, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, I apologize if there's a lot of background noise. I have a vent in my office that will never turn off. So if you have difficulty understanding me or hearing me, just let me know and I'll repeat a part of it. So this program wasn't something that we just created out of thin air. The part of the process where we started was looking at what other cities have done, including kind of comparable cities like Anaheim, who have existing park ranger programs and who have had those for multiple years and have been successful in that. So like Aaron has mentioned, the idea behind this was to create a position that's pretty similar to what we deem as like a CSO, a community service officer 2. So it would be unarmed personnel that would be assigned solely to the city park facilities. And what they would handle would be the things like he mentioned with patrolling the park facilities, unlocking and locking car gates and restrooms and making sure lights and everything were going on, participating in the city events, like Easter or any other large scale events at like Roding or Woodward. And the way that we started breaking down how this would feasibly work was to look at the calls for service that we had in the city and how it would exist within the current structure of the police department. So our idea was that we would start with 20 park ranger positions, and those would be evenly distributed through the 5 policing districts. Jared, can you go to the next slide? Or I think it might be 2 from there. Next one. The next slide, please. Oh, there we go. So the idea was to have it broken down by policing districts. And although we understand that these don't necessarily coincide with the council districts, what it would allow us to do is to have consistent supervision by the patrol sergeants who are assigned to those 5 areas. It would allow for a distribution of the workload for the park rangers that are assigned to the facilities within the policing districts to have familiarity with the different locations and what the needs of every location were. So they would know like which parks have things that need to be unlocked or which are just things that they could kind of drive by and spot check a playground. And then that way that they will have that consistency. We understand that we might have to make some adjustments depending on what's going on in the city. For example, Roding and Woodward Park are usually the parks that have the largest events, sometimes the Jensen Sports Complex. So that might mean that we have to take some personnel from the other districts and shift them over to make sure that we have proper coverage based on the attendance numbers. The overlap days for the shifts are designed to be on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which are typically our highest park attendance days, so that we have more coverage and we have those personnel to move around if we do have large events like the things that occur on Sunday. The shifts will be set up for day shift and swing shifts. So there will be some overlap coverage in case one needs to go back to a police station and maybe book some found property or finish some police reports. So we shouldn't have any that are unattended during the open park hours. We might have to look at it a little bit as we move forward on the process to see if we need to shift anything anywhere based on the needs of the individual locations. But as a starting point, we feel that this would be the best way to start out. We had discussed a couple times about the uniform that the Rangers would be in. So as Aaron mentioned before, the idea is to have them able to patrol on foot, in hybrid trucks, using ATV style vehicles for areas that might need to get down to the river bottom or to large grassy areas, and even electric bicycles. So we wanted something that would be a little easier for them to kind of jump back and forth between the different things. They're going to be outside, they might get dirty. So our idea was to keep it consistent with the current CSO uniform, but change it to a little bit more of a subdued uniform with a light blue polo shirt and dark blue BDU pants or shorts, so that if in case they were going to get on a bicycle. Some people, when we gave this to the city council, had asked about making it more of a traditional park ranger uniform with the tan and green. We did discuss that, but there is some concern with having them confused with personnel from the sheriff's department who wear tan and green as a normal uniform, correctional officers who wear the same colors, national park rangers who are actually sworn peace officers, and any other of the sworn officers. But we feel like if we kind of stuck with the consistent uniform as our normal CSOs, it gives them a little bit more flexibility. It's already established. It's pretty well known in the Fresno community that they work for us, and we would be able to move forward from there. That's still open for discussion, but we feel that that might be the best way. And then we had gone through, if you can go to the next slide, some of the initial projected startup costs for doing this program. So a CSO2 at a B step makes about $72,000 a year with benefits. Their base salary at the B step is actually $45,420. There would be an initial startup cost of getting them the uniforms and a one-time cost for duty equipment. So we're looking at about $78,931 per ranger position. So we're looking at a little over 1.5 for staff and salary. For the equipment, we had them price out the Ford Maverick trucks, which are hybrids, which are a little bit more green. We felt fit in with the park program. The Polaris Rangers for Roding Park, Woodward Park, and then 10 electric bicycles. So we have this equipment cost. It's going to be pretty close to $580,000. And then we have the total startup costs down there at the bottom. Any questions so far?
Yeah, what type of uniforms are these going to be?
So the uniforms are going to be a light blue polo shirt that will have an embroidered name, badge, Fresno PD patches, and then it'll have Ranger emblazoned on the background. And then they will have what we refer to as a BDU, so basically cargo type pants or shorts on the bottom.
Thank you.
Are there special recruitments for the Rangers? I'm sorry.
Special recruitments as far as?
Where they're going to be as opposed to PD, are they being recruited from specific neighborhoods, or is there any special programs to track people into this program?
We haven't discussed the hiring particulars yet. This is just the first version of the plan, how we could make this work.
When you show the number of calls for services, there is a very wide disparity, and I was surprised to see that Southeast Fresno has the lowest numbers, and then it keeps going up. It magnifies tremendously. The part that doesn't make sense is, thank you. As you can see, Southeast Fresno 162, Southwest 946, Central 441. As you can see, the range is very wide. The part that doesn't make sense is that in the different slide, you pointed out that the number of positions will be distributed evenly throughout all parts of the city. So that doesn't make sense. Could you explain why are you not taking into account where the need seems to be the greatest in how you deploy those positions?
Sure, and that was what I mentioned at the beginning of what we might have to adjust. So we also have to keep in mind that just the number of calls for service doesn't necessarily mean the number of activity at each location or the needs that are going on. So the Southeast does have several parks that I believe we don't count, such as Calwa Park. It's not a city park facility that does create multiple calls for service. So what we were looking at is if we start this initially and we determine that there's a higher need in Northeast that maybe the staff that they have assigned there initially do not cover, we can readjust that because they will work for the city. They will just be assigned by the district based on the needs. So in order to give coverage over the geographical areas, the number of parks, before we figure out really what the needs are going to be, this is just the initial idea. And that we will be able to adjust that when we are able to determine really what the calls for service look like. So Woodward Park, for example, has a higher number of calls for service because they do end up with things like, vehicles being broken into during runs or events or marathons, different types of vandalism. Roding Park obviously is very busy because it's one of the larger, more popular parks that regularly has community events. So as we move forward in the process, we'll be able to see exactly what the deployment needs are going to be and if we need to change the staffing by area. But what we originally wanted to make sure was that we are giving sufficient staffing based on the needs because of the large geographical area.
Commissioner Barraza, to kind of follow along those lines there, we still do have our park attendants who fall into our 5 zones throughout the city, who will work closely with the park rangers and have that communication. And I think one thing that's important to note is the park rangers have that direct communication line to PD, to the sergeants and above that we currently do not have. So us working closely with the park rangers and Jordan and her team, I think, a lot of those calls that you do see that are a little bit higher or lower in some cases could just be maybe the data wasn't as clean and wasn't counted. But I think going forward with our park attendants out there in partnership with the park rangers, I think that's a pretty good team to have there together. I think we'll see some great results.
And what's going to be the interaction of these park rangers with the homeless population?
So I think as we mentioned early on, the kind of that community engagement, Jordan can talk more about kind of the roles that they have as park attendants, what they're able to do, and what they're unable to do. But I believe it's going to be that communication with all park users in our park. So Jordan, if you can talk more about maybe kind of their roles and what they cannot do.
Right. So pretty consistent with our current community services officers. What they can do is respond to nonviolent crimes. They can take police reports. They can do all the duties at the park, such as, documenting vandalisms, unlocking and locking bathrooms or car gates, helping any citizens that are in the area. Ideally, if they could make contact with the homeless population and kind of ask them to move along if it's first thing in the morning, we would do that, but they would have to judge that because they are unarmed personnel based on their safety. However, they would be in direct communication with our HART team. So if there was an issue or a large encampment, they would have direct communication to the HART officers from HART PD who would be on duty that would be able to come over to the location and address that issue as being sworn officers. But they would be able to do community outreach. I mean, they could always get names and information to put people from the homeless community in contact with the Hope Outreach team. So there's a lot of opportunity there to really build those relationships while still giving a benefit to the other citizens who want to use the park.
Thank you.
Any follow-up questions, Commissioner Barraza, before I ask mine?
No, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. I noticed that in the presentation you have that park rangers will be patrolling the park 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. Do you have like their shifts? Are they going to be 8-hour shifts, 6-hour shifts? What are their shifts going to be consisting of?
So the idea that we have right now, and again, this is always something that we can adjust as it goes forward, is for them to work basically what we deem as like a platoon schedule, which is a 4-day, 10-hour shift. So that would give them overlap in between the two shifts so that the parks would not go unattended. But essentially, you wouldn't have one person who's going home and waiting for the next person to get on, get their vehicle, get out to the parks. So that way it would give some overlap and provide the coverage from the park hours from 6 a.m. until midnight. So you'd have one officer who was working a day shift type shift, and then you would have another one that would work what we would deem a swing shift in the afternoon.
Okay, and my other question is that during the week, there's not a lot of activity in the parks from residents from like 6 a.m. Normally our parks are really occupied once school is out. So how would those shifts be handled? Because we wouldn't really need that much, in my opinion, of park rangers being at the park until we hit that peak hour.
Well, I think it would be depending on the season as well, because it's going to be a little bit busier in the summer. People are going to try and go out during the cooler hours. We might have different sporting events at the Jensen Sports Complex. So it's just like an overall kind of starting value of what we were looking at in order to give the maximum amount of coverage during those kind of peak hours. Because essentially when they were getting out of school, you would have the two shifts, the daytime and the afternoon officers that would be, or rangers, excuse me, that would be overlapping, and you would have more personnel available to address any issues that did pop up around those hours.
And my other question is, how would we handle the overlapping days? Because we know on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it's pretty busy. There are a lot of sports activities and events going on at the park, and there's only going to be 20 hired. So how would we deal with that?
The same way that we do all the rest of our policing. If there was a large issue, obviously these are unarmed personnel, so we don't want them responding to like disturbances or violent crimes or anything that would happen at any of the park facilities. But they would be in direct communication with the sworn officers who were working that assigned area and could respond to assist if there was a large scale event or a disturbance or a fight or domestic issue or anything of that nature that was going on. So essentially they would just watch and be really good witnesses for the other officers who would show up. But because having the overlap days, which means that you would have all of the people that were assigned to work overlapping with their other shift on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you would have more personnel there that were able to be at all of the park facilities. So if you needed 2 at Woodward Park, or you needed 2 at Roding, or you needed 4, that would be much easier for us to shift that personnel around to address any kind of issue.
And my other question, I'm sorry to just be bombarding this presentation, this workshop, but my other question is, how is the recruitment going to be done? Because are they going to be coming from the police academy? Like, how is this recruitment going to be done? Is it going to be open to our community residents to be able to apply? Because the salary base is a really good starting point with benefits. So how is that recruitment going to be handled?
Yeah, this is not designed to be supplemental for the police department as far as like recruiting police officers. This is designed to be a sole assigned to park facilities. So it will be open to the community. We're not going to just, put our cadets into the positions or anything like that. They have a different path within the police department. So it will be open to the public, the same as any other job announcement. But as far as doing specific recruiting activities, we have not gotten that far in the process yet to discuss.
So will you be coming back to this commission to discuss the recruitment process?
Aaron, did you want to answer that part?
Yeah, so Chair McCoy, we have a team in Parks who comes out to various job fairs. So our plan would be to promote this like all of our other positions at these job fairs. And once we get down and that's advertised, that's definitely something that we will have through our social media outlets as well as other avenues to get this position advertised for all residents to apply for.
I do appreciate the presentation on the Parks Ranger. We have been asking for it for a while, but I would have really been happy to see the whole process of how the recruitment's going to be done, when their recruitment's going to be done, and so on. But I do appreciate you guys bringing to us what you have now. And that will conclude my questions, and I will let anyone else.
And Chair McCoy, just to address the last point that you made, we will also be doing the regular social media advertisement and other things that we do for other positions like cadets or CSO within the police department. This is just the general framework for the program. And as we move forward, once we decide with this, then we'll start looking at, okay, how do we really make this an appealing position within the city? How do we get the buy-in, and how do we really make people engaged and excited about what this is going to offer to the citizens?
I appreciate your response, but we've had a lot of time to prepare this presentation, and we do have members from the public that participate in each meeting we have. So being able to have a little information for the public to know how to apply would have been helpful, since we do have a lot of public participation on these meetings. So again, I do appreciate what you have brought to us tonight, but I wish it was a little bit more complete.
And Chair McCoy, this is an FY23 ask, so these are not approved positions yet. So once we get down that road, when the mayor releases the budget, and we kind of have that in play, we'll definitely have more information and a complete package to bring back, and we can update you on what that will look like, and as far as recruitments and so forth. But right now, again, this is just an FY23 ask as part of the Measure P requirement. So we don't have all the complete details yet.
So what you're saying is once it's completed, you'll come back to this commission and do a full presentation on the completed package with information on how to apply for a park ranger, since we do have a lot of public participation?
We can bring it back with an update, yeah, and I can have our personnel director probably speak to any technical questions on the advertisement and the recruitment, but it will follow all other city job postings. And Assistant City Manager Miller, I know she was a previous personnel director, so if I missed anything, please chime in.
No, Aaron, you said exactly how I would answer it. Is once we have the positions approved, we would be able to start the recruiting efforts, and we could certainly come back to this commission prior to opening that recruitment, so that we can get all of that information out to all of you and provide those links and flyers. And we would be more than happy to have everyone's help in trying to help us recruit for this.
Thank you. And I do see that Dr. Apuda has her hand up, so I'll go ahead and give her the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both for your presentation. The question I have may be related to the information you just gave us. I was wondering, do you have any sense right now, or can you give us a brief description of the qualifications, or is that something that you don't have available yet as you move forward?
That is something that we haven't worked out the details on exactly yet, because this is just the ask of trying to get it in the budget as we move forward, and kind of the general idea of what we're playing with on how we could make this feasible. It will be, in my view, it will be similar to the existing community services officers requirements. But as we move forward in the process, I'd be happy to give you that once we work out the terms.
Thank you.
Do any of the other commissioners have any questions, comments, or concerns about the presentation that was just given to us?
This is Commissioner Parks, if I could ask a question. As this program has been put together so far, can you tell us a little bit about any of the opportunities that the public has had to provide input? And if that hasn't happened yet, will that be possible moving forward as it's being designed? I want to make sure, that residents are having the opportunity to really provide input on what this ranger program looks like, since it's something that's brand new. And, one of the things that stood out to me as I was reading through the presentation actually is the uniform. Thank you for the response to why the colors were chosen, but I think the public should have the opportunity to provide input on this. And so I'm wondering if that is going to be possible as it moves forward.
Commissioner Parks, last week at council and today, the presentation, this is the first time we've rolled this out. So internally, as Lieutenant Beckford mentioned, along with the administration, we kind of did some research as to what other cities were doing, and again, put our plan together. But again, as I think Lieutenant Beckford mentioned, it might need to be tweaked and massaged a little bit. But to answer your question, we have not received much public input because we haven't put it out there. I know a few folks have mentioned it just in passing about the program and the excitement for it. And one of the things that did come up was the uniform question on colors and look. So that is something that we've heard a couple times, but we have not had a platform where we've put this out for community input yet.
So this is Commissioner Singh. I don't want to speak for any of the other commissioners, but I do feel that the people being regulated in their own community parks should have a say in who's regulating them. So if we can make sure that moving forward, at least for this specific project, which can do some good in my eyes, that we make sure that the community is given the opportunities to provide input moving forward, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Does any other commissioners have any questions, comments on the presentation we just seen?
Actually, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to also express my appreciation for the program and the development of this program. I think it's very important and I'm excited about it. But the community representation is so incredibly key. And the ability to be able to apply for such a job is really key as well. So it's incredibly important for us to be able to offer this opportunity to those who qualify. It's a fantastic job in a fantastic place in our parks, and being able to provide to our public and having that public input. So I just wanted to mention also my agreement with that. I think we need to pay attention, especially particular to the aspects of diversity and inclusion and understanding our neighborhoods that are represented in these parks. So I'm excited and I can't wait to hear what we have in store. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Dr. Apuda, you have your hand up again?
I do. I have one last comment, and Commissioner Cummings did a beautiful setup for it. So I want to thank her for that. And that is, it's great that you're at the beginning stages of this. And when you think about the issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and our wonderful community and the diversity there, that you built in from the very beginning, training your folks to work with diverse communities. It's an excellent time because it's at the very beginning. And so it becomes a part of the culture of the Rangers, that they're well-versed in and have a high level of cultural competency. It's a recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have any other commissioners that have questions in regards to this presentation?
Chair McCoy, I'm sorry, Commissioner Parks, just one last quick question. Lieutenant, you mentioned the river bottom. I believe you said that there might be some patrol of the river bottom. Can you tell us just a little bit more about that? Is it envisioned, and this may be premature in the process of developing this program, but is it envisioned that the park rangers would also provide some support along the San Joaquin River Parkway within the city of Fresno?
The goal is to be able to assign people to any of the city park facilities that fall within our purview. So ideally, it would be only the park facilities, but there are some like Woodward Park that has access down off of the, I think it's the biking trails and some other things that go down towards the river bottom. There's things off of the canals. So we want to be able to make sure that we are able to access all the parts of where we might have citizens that are going to be in need of some kind of the ranger services.
Thank you for that. I was asking that question because the state San Joaquin River Conservancy's board meeting agenda for this week's meeting has some information about working with the city to figure out enforcement on the Fresno side of the river. So I was just curious if this park ranger program might be incorporated in that. Thank you for that response.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Dr. Apuda, you have your hand up. You have an additional question? No? Okay. Any other commissioners with any other questions or comments in regards to this presentation? All right, well, thank you and good presentation, and thank you guys. We will now move on to our other workshop, 10B, item number 22-683, update on the courts at Vanlin Parks. Would a member of the Parks Department please begin their presentation?
Sorry, I was on mute. Good evening, Chair McCoy and members of the Commission. Aaron Aguirre, Parks Director. As promised, wanted to bring this item to you in the Vanlin Park update. Just some history of how we got there and some information on where we're going. So briefly, just a list of events. We had a couple courts this past June last year that were resurfaced, and during that process, they were relined with multi-use lines to accommodate multiple sports. Estimated cost of each court site was about $15,000 per site. In March of 2022, we found that some of our newly resurfaced sports courts were in need of repair based on some damage that we saw. And the three signs were listed and located at Orchid Park, Rotary East, and Vanlin Park. Council District 2, 6, and 4. That was April of 2020. And signs were put up shortly after notifying our park users. Just an image, this is Rotary East Park of the events that we came across. This is cornhole on our newly resurfaced courts. As you can see, a great event. Looks like about 10 lanes or matches going on. Based on that event, you can see afterwards the damage caused to our courts. Again, this was an incident. We talked to them, and fortunately they were able to move off, but the damage was done. So we had to go back and try to pressure wash that off, and unfortunately it's still there. So something we're working through. This is Vanlin Park. This is one of the, again, newly resurfaced courts. We had the expansion joint here. These expansion joints, as you can see, keep the surface clean, smooth, and these were unfortunately dug out. You can see weeds start growing through there. It starts kind of changing the structural integrity of the court. So there's that. And then this here is, again, one of the resurfaced courts. Somebody or some group went through and unfortunately painted the lines across the new courts. Again, working on a solution on how we repair that, but that line still sits there today. So what we're doing out at Vanlin is we are looking at purchasing, and the PO's been cut, these multi-use posts, which will replace the existing tennis court posts that are there that only accommodate tennis. So the new posts that will go in, as you can see, will allow for sports courts that will accommodate tennis, volleyball, badminton, or any other type of net activity. So the guests will have the option to utilize the existing nets on the courts and use the setting on the new post to play any of the above sports that I just mentioned. Kind of see here, this post will sit in a sleeve on the tennis court, and it has various levers here that you can adjust the height of the net. So you can go from 42 inches all the way up to 96. Again, all levels of volleyball, tennis, badminton, or any other net games. So those posts, the PO has been cut. Those posts are hopefully on their way. The vendor said they'd be here in about a week and a half. So awaiting the delivery of those. Just next steps, as I mentioned, those posts will be ordered this week. We're expecting delivery of those posts May 16th, and the installation, approximately 2 to 3 days. We'll have to dig up the old nets, or the old posts for the tennis nets, and then put the new sleeve in, concrete around, and then install that. So we're expecting 2 to 3 days. And by the end of the month, May 23rd, we expect to have the post up with the new nets, and our courts then can be used for any of the net games that I mentioned above. So kind of short and brief, but that's what's going on. We did have a series of meetings. As you guys know, the signs have been removed, and this is the solution we're working towards. One other thing we're looking at doing is removing the painted line there at Vanlin, as I showed earlier, and seeing if we can get the vendor who resurfaced our courts to come back and paint a permanent line there to accommodate that sporting activity and league that was using that line there. So again, now we can add the proper lines at these courts to accommodate the additional sports that are needed there. And with that, that concludes my brief presentation. Available to answer any questions.
I would definitely like to make some comments, please. So I'm glad that you know, that the city is able to make at least somewhat of like a fix to this. I know that there were some disputes about, you know, who can be on the court and stuff with the signs being put up, but I still don't think that we have, or maybe this is something that's been clarified that I didn't catch earlier. Why were this, like, under what protocol were the signs put up? Like, if there was an investigation or analysis about the damage that was done, like, was there a police report or was someone caught? Because to say some people or some groups damaged that specific thing, to word it like that is to, it kind of seems targeting in my eyes, right? So I just want to know, like, what type of protocol was there for us to even put those signs up, right? That way we can know for the future for our other communities too, that, you know, okay, like, this is the specific protocol that you have to follow, and these are the specific bylaws, you know, that discuss this.
So based on vandalism, and we've done this in the past previously before I came about, facilities would actually get locked based on vandalism. Obviously, we don't want to do that. We want to make sure the courts are open. Again, nobody was ever accused of any particular group. It's just that we noticed the vandalism occurred, and we wanted to make sure these newly resurfaced courts were in good shape for all park users. So again, it was something that was not intended to target any particular group, any particular sporting activity. It was just, again, the vandalism that we saw to our courts, and trying to keep those as nice as possible.
Thank you. And just kind of also going off that, like the signs going down, I know everyone pretty much appreciates that, right? They shouldn't have been put up in the first place, but, you know, them going down is good too. But it doesn't really resolve any reservation disputes that have been going on between,
Sure.
you know, all the players, tennis players, volleyball players, pickleball players, and anyone, badminton players, anyone else that uses the courts, I just want to I mean, this is a question I want to pose to everyone, whether you're a participant or, you know, my fellow commissioners and the city staff. Like, what are the more long-term solutions, right? I know that I recently learned actually that when you reserve a court, you have to have insurance. Is that correct, city staff?
That is correct. And we just met and we're working on a solution to address that.
Okay, and so could you actually give me a kind of a little bit more details about the insurance? So, I'm wondering, like, if a youth group wants to reserve the courts for, you know, pickleball or tennis or volleyball, they would need insurance. But, like, are there any waivers for the fee? Are there any, you know, is it accessible? That's my question.
And Commissioner Singh, that's one of the questions that, as we started going through our reservation system and looking at insurance and things of that nature, looking at that and asking ourselves, does that make sense? Are we excluding people who may not have the means to the insurance? So we're looking at some options. One of those options could be you reserve it and sign a waiver. But again, the other option is you come out to the park, first come, first serve if it is not reserved, and it's your court to use. Another thing we're looking at doing with our reservation system is it has been a request, and it's a request that we're moving forward with to update that. It's pretty tough to navigate through that. Trying to reserve it on your phone or on your computer should be pretty easy to do. It's an older system, so we're looking at upgrading that. One of the things that it will allow us to do is put QR codes or some sort of list on the gate that you can scan it to see, hey, is this court reserved? Or and if it's not, how do I reserve it? How do I go about that? And just kind of getting that message out to our park users. But more importantly, our park attendants on the site have the information. So sometimes disputes come up, whatever it may be, they're there to address those. But that oftentimes has been the comment we've heard from our community. I can't navigate through your reservation system. So hearing that loud and clear, we're looking at upgrading that old system to a state-of-the-art system that allows our guests to easily reserve a court or see if the court's reserved ahead of time on their way down to the park.
And sorry, I won't take up too much more time, fellow commissioners. I wanted to, so thank you for letting us know that we will be looking into the reservation system and, you know, especially regarding the insurance, which I feel like is a big accessibility issue. But just in general, I think that we clearly see I mean, you know, whether it's, you know, pickleball, which, you know, we've seen a lot more players recently, and then, or volleyball, which has really strong roots in, not just in the Hmong community, but in Fresno in general. Like, we see a very large base for both of these communities. And so clearly, I think that we need to also start looking into expansion of more courts, not just for pickleball, not just for volleyball, but for both, right? And, you know, seeing what type of facilities can we come up with. If we have, you know, at our last meeting, I think that we had said that there were about 1,000 Hmong volleyball players. Like, in my eyes, that's enough to justify, you know, building actual proper facilities that are meant specifically for volleyball, right? So if we can possibly later down the line, and maybe this is something that we might even want to look into, like recommending for the budget, like seeing if we could do a feasibility study regarding whether or not, you know, we can get volleyball courts specific, or I mean, like, you know, whether it's an indoor facility, outdoor facility, and, you know, having community input on it, that would be really nice. And even for pickleball too. And this isn't to exclude pickleball, tennis, or any other sports. It's just in this specific instance, I'm bringing up volleyball because of the recent signs that were put up. Thank you.
Right. And Commissioner Singh, just one last comment. Other things we're looking at, Vanlin, again, we just met today, looking at potentially expanding to the north of the existing tennis courts for, I don't know if you call it lawn volleyball or grass volleyball. having another option for our community to use out there. So just another thought for you, and just some things we're working through on our end.
Awesome. And yeah, I had believed at the community meeting, they had actually at Vanlin Park the other week when I had attended, they had mentioned that they could have played on the grass, but there was no lighting there. There is lighting at the tennis courts, but not on the grass. So I mean, I know that would probably encompass, building the courts, or like that would be within, building the courts on the grass. But I mean, either way, I think that whatever we do, whatever the Parks Department Parks Commission does, I think it needs to be community led. We've clearly seen what happens when we don't get the community's input before, building or putting up signs. So whatever we do, let's make sure that at least that the community that's there the majority of the time has, or that's there more than us at least, has a fair share or in making the decisions of what goes on there.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. I have a quick question for you, Aaron. Last week, Commissioner Vang spoke about how hurt the mall community felt through this whole process. Are there any timelines and direct actions that the community should know and understand? That's one question. And the second one, where is the park set on the cultural responsive training for the staff? Second question.
So second question on the training, we have our personnel assistant director sent over training protocols. So we're working and getting that organized, and that'll be a department-wide training that all employees will get, temporary as well as our permanent employees. So we're hoping to have that underway here towards the tail end of this month. And then your first question, excuse me, Chair McCoy, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so Commissioner Vang spoke last time we met about the hurt that the mall community felt through this whole process. Are there any timelines and direct actions that the community should know and understand? And has there been any other follow-up with the mall community to express any type of, like to apologize for what they had to go through at Vanlin Park?
There is. We had a meeting this afternoon, and city staff will be reaching out, and there will be an upcoming meeting and an update for the community on the list of events. So they're looking at middle of this month having something in person kind of meeting outreach event.
Were there any members of the mall community in that area in attendance with that meeting today?
That's going to be an outreach, but we did have our Office of Community Affairs from the Mayor's office. They were there and have strong ties to the community, and we'll be working with them to make sure they're present and know of the upcoming meeting.
So it was an internal meeting within staff?
Yes, to game planning and reach out to the community.
So I think that meeting between the mall community and Parks Department needs to happen ASAP, just to explain and to smooth over some things, because that community is very, very hurt right now. That's the park that they use. That's the park that they go to, and they feel like they're not welcomed anymore. So I think community members need to be present in the meeting. That should have, in my opinion, should have happened already. We shouldn't have to wait for that meeting to happen to make it right. So just a suggestion. I know you guys are going to move to your own beat, but that meeting should have took place already. Thank you. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to my vice chair for his question.
Thank you, Chair. Aaron, I apologize if this is a question with an obvious answer, but why is there a requirement to carry insurance for these courts?
And Vice Chair Dolan, that's what we're working with our risk management to see if we can clean that up. But that's been a existing policy of our risk management department to eliminate or reduce the city's liability.
But are these courts and the use of these courts and the sports that are played materially different from something like basketball? I mean, I don't think we require people to carry insurance if they're going to play hoops or something, right?
And again, that's only if you want to reserve the court. You don't need to ask permission or provide insurance if you go and drop in at any of our parks to play basketball, tennis, volleyball, baseball, softball, only when you're reserving the courts.
I see. Okay, thank you.
So my question, I'm sorry, Dr. Akuda, I'll get to you right now. Aaron, so what happens if you have a group of community residents already in the court and then there's a reservation for a court? How is that resolved?
So that's with our park attendants. Typically, in an ideal world, you'd show your reservation that you have the court, it's reserved, and the group who's there then would pick up and move on. Oftentimes that does not happen. And so this is where the park rangers and our park attendants work together to resolve that. But we have had a few of those instances, Chair McCoy, where, you know, there was a group at Orchid Park that reserved a court, and another event was going on, a pickup game, and they would not leave. We had to work with PD and get officers out there, and eventually we refunded that group their money back because they weren't able to use the court for their recreational activities.
Okay, Dr. Akuda?
A quick request, when you do meet, when you do set your meeting for with the Hmong community, can you inform us of that meeting?
Sure, absolutely.
And also, because I've had the experience that you just talked about of having reserved something at a park, but usually it goes well, you know. But do we put signs up that something is already reserved? I know we do for the picnic areas, but what about for the sports areas?
Dr. Apuda, we tried that, and we had these plastic metal devices where you'd put a slip and show that the fields are reserved from what times. Unfortunately, those were ripped off and vandalized. That was something, but again, I mentioned early on a QR code that you can with your phone scan, and the idea would be it would take you to the recreation reservation page and show you who, that way it kind of eliminates a conflict of some sort. You know, show, hey, look, I have this court reserved, or I have the picnic pavilion. So for instance, this past Easter, what we did, we had reservations, and we actually put the signs that you talked about. We had them on these large A-frames, like a 24 by 36 inch sign that showed reserved for Dr. Apuda and family. So that's what we did for Easter at our regionals. But that's something that we were looking at doing, but it'd probably be more through like the QR code that somebody cannot just come through and rip off. It would be, whether it's a placard that's on the gate there, scanned to see if the courts are reserved. That way too, you can en route to the park, even look it up to see if your court's reserved, or, I mean, but it's not going to resolve the pickup games though.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Akuda. Does any of the other commissioners have any questions or comments in regards to the presentation we just seen? All right. We will now move on to another workshop, 10-C, ID number 22-684. A workshop update on Measure P funding allocated to the San Joaquin River Parkway in fiscal year 2022. Would a member of the Public Works Department please begin the presentation?
Good evening, Chair McCoy and Commissioners. I'm Scott Mosier with the Public Works Department, and have a brief presentation to update the Commission. Right, and I'll go ahead and share screen. Okay. All right. So this was originated from a request from Commissioner Parks, just about the funding dedicated to the San Joaquin River Parkway. So I'll go ahead and provide a brief refresher from a previous presentation and update the Commission on what's happened since. So overall, again, back to what is Measure P? We're very familiar now with the 5 sub-programs, and we'll be talking this evening specifically about the fifth bucket, which is the safe walking and biking trails, street beautification, litter removal, and the San Joaquin River Parkway. So, and those percentages as shown on the slide, trails we talked about before, 47% of the 11.25. The streetscape beautification work at 35, and then we're totally focused right now on the 18% for the San Joaquin River Parkway. And again, that's 18% of the 11.25%. So quick recap on the other parts of that program. 47% of course is for trails. That's citywide, trail development, urban greening, all the associated activities with those. And just again, as a refresher, no more than 20% of those funds can go into operations and maintenance, and minimum 25% for the priority network of class 1 and class 4. The 18%, the second component, this is the language in the measure. 18% of the funds shall be made available for operations and projects consistent with the San Joaquin River Parkway Master Plan. And then a very big key component here, in coordination with the San Joaquin River Conservancy and the San Joaquin River Parkway Trust. I'll skip over what we previously shared with the commission about the litter and debris removal and street beautifications. So San Joaquin River Parkway. Again, a lot of reference made to the San Joaquin River Parkway Master Plan. This is available, readily available. I believe there are links to that document through both the Conservancy and the Parkway Trust websites. So lots of good previous planning efforts along that entire corridor from the 99 up to Friant Dam. And of course, this evening we're focused on the component of it within the City of Fresno jurisdiction. So this is really getting into the status update. So when we brought the item, staff brought the item before the commission and ultimately then the city council, what we did was just to make sure the Fresno City Council was fully aware of the funding by the various categories, that we had appropriated all of the revenue in the budget. $500,000 was appropriated on a single line item for San Joaquin River Parkway. As shared with both the Parkway Trust and the Conservancy, those funds had both a unique fund number and what we call an organization number within the city's budget that distinguish that line item from anything else. So we're very careful on our tracking, positive time reporting, and accounting. But there was no project list associated with that $500,000. It was really just a placeholder to set that in the right spot in the budget. And so additional revenue will be programmed in fiscal year 23 based upon the formula that we went through, the 18% of the 11.25% plus unused carryover from this fiscal year. We are not going to spend the $500,000 by fiscal year end. To date, we've had some conversations between the three groups. We had one more formal scheduled meeting with the Conservancy staff, Parkway Trust, and City of Fresno, and additional coordination meetings to come up. Really, I'd characterize that we're in the planning and prioritization phase of the effort. There are quite a number of needs out there. City staff is working to identify those and then bring those back to a meeting between the three organizations. So to date, yes, we have spent some dollars, just under $3,000 for some minor trail maintenance work along the Parkway, but really there's much more out there. Right now in May, we talked with both groups, and I shared some slides previously about the Jensen River Ranch restroom in need of some minor concrete repairs around the foundation. There are gaps forming in that. There's some damage. We want to head that off with some concrete repairs. And also a big goal identified by all three groups was really getting that restroom back in operation for trail users. The city had to shut it down during the recession due to some pretty significant vandalism that was occurring in the restroom. And we were not equipped at the time to both deal with that and provide enough ongoing operations for it. So what we envision is some interior repairs, some type of locking system. We're exploring options, and then also more frequent janitorial service for that restroom, both weekdays and weekends. Again, you saw some costs about trail maintenance. So our Measure P funded trail crew that's new this year, I'm pleased to report we have filled those positions. They're doing lots of work citywide. Vast majority of the time is spent elsewhere, and that's that separate just trail, not San Joaquin River Parkway dedicated funding, but just the trail maintenance funding. That's being done, but they do have some capacity to utilize this special part of the funding for specific facilities in the San Joaquin River Parkway master plan limits. So this is the crew makeup. We do currently have some capacity to deal with trails within the Parkway area. And as we talked before, goals, again, improving service cycles and getting into some of these deferred maintenance needs. A big effort under design, as we've shared before, is the River West Eaton Trail Extension Project. We now have a request for qualifications out on the street for design firms to propose and submit their statements of qualification to be considered for that design work. Basically, once that project is designed and all permits are in hand, the San Joaquin River Conservancy and the Wildlife Conservation Board that oversees those state dollars, then we anticipate that they would authorize the construction phase and build this really wonderful project to be coming up. And that project, when built out, that will really use a significant share of these funds, but no doubt there will be enough Measure P San Joaquin River Parkway dollars to address other needs, most definitely throughout the corridor. And what those might be, they could deal with opportunities from additional tree planting, irrigation, from dealing with, for example, some of the areas that had the fires occur. There may be a desire to introduce some fire breaks in that area to prevent that from occurring, rodent control, or just addressing filling in gopher holes and such, trails, amenities. Really, the list goes on, as well as we anticipate discussion with Parkway Trust and the Conservancy about what type of recreational programming is their desire. Would it be a priority for docent type programs, more opportunities, bringing in the youth or children for events, services to families or trail users. So really, we're early on. I think we're starting to make some headway, and lots more to come in the year ahead. Here again, just some photos. Not a whole lot. The restroom is solid and it's there, but we want to keep it that way. So we're addressing these foundation issues before they get worse. But from there, we are open for any questions or discussion. Hope this update has been helpful.
Thank you for that presentation, Scott. Does any of our commissioners have any questions or comments about the presentation we just seen?
Chair McCoy, this is Commissioner Parks. If I could ask a couple of questions. So starting with Fresno River West, the slide says that the River West operations and maintenance expenses will be one of the larger demands upon these funds. Scott, I'm wondering if there has been any work done to create a cost estimate for what the annual O&M fees might be once that project is built out?
Excellent question. And of course, the project has not been designed yet, so we can't nail that down precisely. However, given the concepts that were in the EIR, we anticipate something in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $300,000 potentially per year for that. And a lot of that work deals with things like the restroom facilities, opening, closing of gates, and various items like that.
Excellent. So my understanding with the city's current project for Fresno River West is that completion on planning and design permitting is probably going to happen somewhere around the end of 2023. So in the meantime, there are many needs along the Parkway. So I'm curious if you've looked at, for example, improvements, security upgrades at the Milburn Overlook. I know that that's an area that I've heard public comment about over the last couple of years. River Bottom Park definitely could use some love. Campus Cheyenne, the Riverside segment of the Eaton Trail. I'll be quite honest, it's been a little while since I've been out there, but the last time I was, there was a fair amount of graffiti and other issues that could be addressed. So I'm wondering, while the city's going through the process for Fresno River West, are you looking at other opportunities for improving the service levels along the Parkway within the city of Fresno?
Absolutely, and we wholeheartedly welcome those types of suggestions. In fact, the Riverside section of the trail was just serviced about 2 weeks ago. Great. And prior to Measure P really being available and having the trail crew in place, that I can say that section of trail did not receive the type of service that we would want to have for the community. So my field supervisor's first reaction is, wow, this section really needs some love. And the trail crew took a lot of pride in their work. And I'm excited that that's not just a one-time thing, but that's on the rotation. They will be back. Milburn Overlook, I would defer to my colleague, Mr. Aguirre, who has invested a lot of time in that facility. And if that's deemed a priority, I also would be very excited to be able to deliver some improvements at Milburn Overlook using some of these resources.
Myself, as well as Assistant Director Ramirez, have met with Councilmember Carbasi, and I believe, Aldi, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe some funds were identified to look at some options for the Milburn Overlook.
Correct.
Excellent. And then one last question. So the city's general plan calls for a regional park at the end of Weber Avenue. And I'm wondering if any consideration has been given to using the Parkway bucket Measure P funds for pursuing that in the future.
And Commissioner Parks, that has not come up in conversation. I know there's a lot of conceptual planning work toward Camp Cheyenne and just that general end of the Parkway at this time. But we have not talked yet about possible use of these San Joaquin River Parkway Measure P dollars to advance that forward. But we can definitely add that to the list for consideration.
And I'm sorry, I do have one last question. I know you mentioned that you've had at least initial conversations with the Conservancy in particular, and I'm just curious, recognizing that the State Conservancy also currently has a pretty significant funding allocation for O&M on the Parkway, are you thinking through how to best leverage the Measure P funds versus the Conservancy's funds? Are those kinds of conversations happening?
They are, and again, we're at the early stages of that as to highest priorities and what that looks like. But anytime we can look at leveraging these dollars, having them go further, that's a win-win.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Do any other commissioners have any questions in regards to the presentation we just seen? All right, we will move on to our next workshop. That would be item 10-D, ID number 22-702. Overview of the newly installed pay on foot stations for parking at Rodeo Park and Woodward Park. Would a member of the Parks Department please begin the presentation?
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. Aaron Aguirre, Parks Director. Here today to discuss and update you on our new pay on foot stations that we've recently installed at Rodeo and Woodward Park. As many of you have probably witnessed and been a part of, I've also probably received questions from constituents. So I want to make sure we give you the latest and greatest information and how that program is running. So just some brief history. This initiated back September 2020. Council approved the purchase of the installation of the license plate recognition hardware and 26 pay on foot stations to be located at our regional parks. This was part of the CARES Act reimbursement, so that went toward the equipment purchase. So the goal behind these pay on foot stations and the removal of the park gates would be to eliminate the bottlenecks, wait times, and then sometimes, you know, we have the confusing operational hours as we get into the various seasons. So this is the same platform that's used by Fresno Police Department as well as our Planning and Development Department that oversees all of our parking administration through the downtown and citywide. So as I think many of you have probably seen the video that we put out kind of introducing these, there's various payment methods, credit card, cash, coins, and then smartphones. You can download the Park mobile app. And with that app, you can prepay on your way to the park, or while you're in the park, you can pay for your parking. So no longer having to wait in lines, or even, you know, on your phone, having to find a pay on foot station. You can do it all from your phone there. And then we also have validation codes. So we work closely with the zoo. They have a big event coming up. So we've worked with the zoo, and these validation codes will go into effect during their events. These are kind of prepaid parking passes. So instead of having to deliver a temporary pass, their patrons are given a code that they go type in their license plate number, redeem the code, and their parking is then taken care of. So also with this new technology, it allows city staff kind of the rich analytics and gives us real-time information. What do our parks look like? How many patrons do we have in there? Especially, you know, come Easter and some of the big Mother's Day events, Memorial Day events. We get to a certain level and we run out of parking stalls. So knowing in advance kind of where we're at is always a good thing. Having that data at pretty much the click of a button, and there it is. I mentioned the contactless payment option, and then hand sanitizing units will be attached to the terminals as well. One thing I do want to point out, these terminals don't just pay for parking. Eventually we will have these set up so you can purchase tickets to, let's say you're at Woodward Park, to the Shenzhen Garden. So you can purchase your ticket at the pay on foot station or from your phone. You're not waiting in lines. You're walking up, show me your pass, and into the park you go. So that's one of the advantages to the units. So here's a snapshot of one of the pay on foot stations. Here's what you see if you are going up to pay. There's a little keypad here that lights up, and you enter your license plate information, your payment method, like I mentioned, credit cards, coins, cash, and it has the tap to pay option as well. So really touchless, and with COVID, I think this was something that we identified as a win-win for the city as well as all of our guests. As mentioned, there's 26 of these stations throughout both regional parks, and the mobile app. So you'll see down below this Park Mobile little QR code here. Here's where you can go and download the actual app for your phone. And then this zone here lets you know what zone you're parked in. So when you're paying, you know exactly where you're located. Here's Rodeo Park. As you can see, these are throughout. I don't know if you guys can see these clearly enough or not, but there's a little gray kind of a box with a $sign. this shows you where all the pay on foot stations are located throughout the park. So you can see they're spread out. We've got a couple over by the tennis courts, over here by Redwood Grove. Of course, a lot of them are near the zoo entrance. We also have some towards kind of the northeast portion of the park. So there's plenty out there for folks to use. And in addition, they can also use their phones. Woodward Park, as you can see, same thing, they're split throughout. This is the dog park, so you've got a few around here. The Japanese garden, you've got a couple here. So as you can see, they're located throughout the entire park. So really have a lot of options for folks to use. You aren't having to find one or pay up front and then go park. It's all there for our guests. Here's a picture of the cameras. These cameras here, that's what's taking the picture of your license plate as you enter and then as you exit. So what happens is you come in, this camera here will read your license plate. And at that point, I believe it's 15, if not 20 minutes, each person will come in. You have 15, 20 minutes to pay for your parking. After that 15, 20 minutes, it registers in the system that there's an unpaid patron in the park. After a certain number, that threshold, once that's reached, parking enforcement can come in and start citing folks. But again, it's not after 15 minutes you automatically get a ticket. You're still going to see our City of Fresno parking team out there writing citations if needed. But again, these cameras in this system will not be sending tickets home to the individuals or the registered owner. So again, it's just to capture them. And then at that point, you'll still have city staff coming through to deliver the citation if needed. Just to go through our parking structure and our rates, year round, it's $5. Seniors age 65 and older is $3. Our holiday rate, for instance, Easter Sunday is $7. Active military is free with validation, and the disabled placard is free as well. Our annual passes are $50, and seniors annual passes are $35. And then we offer the fare program through, which is established by PG&E, and that's a $25 rate. So did want to mention that. And then last thing, the benefits, again, as I mentioned early on, just the efficiency of entering our parks, the multiple payment options we offer, and again, being contactless. And then park mobile users can track receipts and parking history. It's all there for them on the app. And then annual park permit holders will not need to pay daily or their vehicle license. Once you're entered into the system, it's an annual permit. You won't have to go in each and every time you enter the park and find a pay on foot station or use your phone and type in your information. It's set and it's secure. Same with our employees. Some employees, their information's entered into the system, their work schedule set up. So say Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, they're registered as not as a paying patron, but they're there as they need to be there. Once you get beyond that, then that kind of duration then is up, and they would have to pay for parking. And then lastly, the park operator, Ace Parking, while they won't be present in the booth, you will still see them walking around our parks. They'll be servicing the units, the pay on foot stations, and working with our guests on any questions they may have, any concerns they may have, or any disputes they may have. So they'll still be out and about. I know we've got some questions about the customer service. They'll still offer great customer service to our folks, but they'll be doing that on foot in person versus behind the booth. So with that, I conclude my presentation and open up for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Aaron and staff, for that presentation. Do any commissioners have any questions in regards to the presentation we just seen? And I see 2 hands up, and I will go to the first hand I see, which is Vice Chair Dolan.
Thank you, Chair. And Aaron, thank you for that presentation. I know there's a lot of wrinkles to work out with something like this as it rolls out. I wanted to ask you about the parking charge. It was $5 previous to this. Is there an additional fee besides the $5? I understood that it's like a $5.63 or 36 cents charge is what I'm hearing from people, which makes the cash payment a little tricky.
That, Vice Chair Dolan, I'm unaware of. Let me research that and get back to you. I'm not sure if Dari is on the call. She's on the accounting side of things.
Okay.
So
I
let me
think
confirm and I'll get
maybe it's a service charge of some sort that is associated with this. The reason I bring it up is, Aaron, I'm sure you're aware, and the parks teams in general. Sunday at Roding Park is it's a cash crowd, and there's very good reason for that. But it's difficult to pay cash at these stations as it is now, and I think the solution thus far has been for people to walk and find an ACE person to pay cash to, which the backup on all these things. So it creates a barrier for some of our guests that I think it's just a question of thinking through the details and figuring this out. And I know there's a lot to do to get there. And I appreciate the work you guys are doing on it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bowen. And that did come up in one of our stakeholder meetings that we do have. And that's a great comment. We do have a population who typically deals in cash, and sometimes those bills are hard to cash out or change, so we are working on something with ACE to try to resolve that.
Thank you. And I do see that Dari has her hand up, so I'll go ahead and let her respond. You have the floor.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to answer the question about the transaction fee. The city does have a 2.3% transaction fee for any credit card charges. So our contract with Heartland would apply for transactions through the Park mobile app and also the pay stations. We're working on getting the software set up for the pay stations. So currently there is no transaction fee for either the cash, and there won't be for cash, but for the credit card side, there isn't a charge currently.
Great, thank you for that clarification, Darren.
And then one more some information I forgot to leave out. We did open these up in April, and we're still going through our kind of soft launch. So at this point, if somebody does come through and maybe they have a hard time navigating through the app or the unit themselves, we're still educating. We're not ticketing at this point in time. So we're still going through that with ACE and reaching out to folks. So we aren't ticketing our park users at this time.
Thank you. Dr. Apuda, you have your hand up. You have the floor.
Thank you for the presentation, Aaron, and you've been working real hard tonight. Just out of curiosity, what happens if someone does not have a license plate on their car? I'm trying to figure out how to sneak in. No.
Still here, because that question did come up about, I don't know, purchasing a new car and paper plates, and Dari's been heavily involved in the implementation. Dari, you still here?
I am. It's actually California code to have a license plate on your vehicles. So if there was a situation where a parking enforcement officer were to come into a vehicle that didn't have plates, they would be cited for not having plates. The paper plates that are for your new vehicles will show up on the cameras, and they'll show up just like a regular license plate as well.
Thank you, Dari.
Thank you, Dari.
Just wanted to ask, because you were, sorry, Aaron, you were saying that there were not going to be any fines in the beginning as we kind of transition. How long is that period of time going to be for?
We're running through the end of May. We wanted to make sure, as we got through, as I mentioned, Memorial Day is a big holiday in our park. So want to run it through one large, big kind of turnout event and just make sure the kinks are completely worked out in the situation. So we've got about another 30 days, and then we will go through and go with the full-on enforcement at that point.
I mean, like I like that we're having that time frame, but what about, and this is just maybe something, I mean, you guys have probably already talked about, y'all have probably already talked about it, but like, say someone has a first time offense, are they given a warning or straight to a ticket, like after May? It would be nice to see, you know, okay, you messed up here once, but, you know, we're going to give you a warning parking ticket, but rather than going straight to a somewhat hefty fine, I feel that, you know, people should be given at least that one chance, even after May.
Yeah, I think at this time, Commissioner Singh, I don't believe that was one of the options. That's why we've actually, we were gonna do this for 30 days, and we actually extended it an additional 2 weeks. So when it's all said and done, we'll actually, the soft launch will be more like a 6-week, not a 30-day window. So the plan, as I mentioned, at the end of the month would be then to go just into our enforcement, just like we do downtown and any other garage or lot that we operate.
And will the fines and fees that are collected from parking tickets go to the Parks Department? Or will it go to other funding sources, pools? Sorry.
That's a great question, and I know that's a question that Dari and I have talked about, and Dari probably answer it better than I can. So Dari?
The parking fees for citations will go to the parking department, and those fees are collected into the general fund.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, if we can possibly even discuss having one time like warnings for everyone, you know, like I'm sure there's a way to track who has received a parking ticket before, once, before, twice, you know, that would seem a lot less punitive and also just, I mean, I understand there's probably not much we can do about, you know, parking fees or fines going to the general fund rather than the Parks Department, but at least if we can get that first request at least discussed internally or wherever, that would be nice.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Do we have any other questions or comments in regards to the presentation we just seen from our commissioners?
Chair McCoy, this is Commissioner Parks. I have a couple of quick questions and a quick comment. I had occasion to use one of these pay stations on Saturday for my entrance to Woodward Park, and I found it to be very easy to use. Use the app, so recommend that. I have a question about annual passes. So prior to rolling this pay station program out, were the annual passes restricted to one license plate?
So they were, Commissioner Parks, on the application with ACE, they had two lines for 2 different license plates or 2 different vehicles that they could transfer that placard to. We're working through some of those. Those questions have come up, and Dari's been working with ACE on a resolution to that. So the way it will work, that one license plate will be tied to the annual pass. We won't have one annual pass to 2 different vehicles at this point.
Can you say that one more time? I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. The last sentence.
The way the system is set up now and the direction that we are going with the pay on foot station for annual pass holders, it'll be tied to one vehicle, one license plate number.
I'd like to just make a recommendation that be reconsidered, just based on my experience with state parks and national parks. My national parks pass is restricted to 2 people, and you have to sign it, but it's not restricted to 1 vehicle. You never know which car you might want to take to the park if you're going with, you know, your whole family or just yourself. So I would highly recommend reconsidering that if possible. One other question, when this was rolling out through social media, I did see some comments in various spaces about whether or not the city would consider going to an hourly rate model, like up into a certain point till you hit the $5. And I do understand that there's a whole process for readjusting the city's fee structure, but I wonder if that is something that might be considered too if somebody's only going to be in the park for 2 hours, for example?
Yeah, we left it essentially alone as far as, currently you pay to go in the park whether you're there for an hour or 8 hours, the $5. That wasn't, as far as I recall, part of the plan. But Dari, was that ever considered?
No, we didn't. We didn't change the rate that's in the master fee schedule. Of course, it's, our parks rates are always open. I mean, we're going through them and making sure that we're charging the correct amounts. And the $5 rate has been the ongoing rate for a few years now to enter the city parks, the regional parks.
It just might be something to consider moving forward. And I just bring it up because I saw a number of comments specifically related to that online when this was rolling out. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Do we have any other questions or comments in regards to this presentation from our commissioners? All right, we will move on to our hearings. ID number 22-678, receive public input on allocations related to Measure P and the annual Parks Department budget and capital improvement plans. Would any member of the public like to make a comment regarding this item? You will have up to 3 minutes for comment.
Yes, we have Alan McEwen.
Okay, I think I unmuted. Can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This is Alan McEwen. I am a representative of the Fresno area pickleball group. We have submitted a Measure P project proposal back in August for the installation of permanent pickleball courts. It was a $150,000 project proposal at the Rotary East Park site. Just to let you know, we have in our organization over 300 members and estimated another 500 members playing pickleball around the city. We focus primarily on 3 sites at the current time, and that's at Vanlin, Rotary East, and out at Orchid Park. The project is for some permanent courts at the site at Rotary East at this point in time. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that that project proposal is in, and there are many, many, many people looking forward to installation of permanent courts rather than having to bring own equipment out and etc. I wanted to also mention that I agree with Commissioner Singh that the Measure P is an opportunity to provide services that are not traditional in terms of activities, and I think that we should look at those opportunities as a part of the bigger picture at this point. The need for volleyball play, for appropriate pickleball facilities, for Hmong related facilities is the way I think that the Commission should be looking at opportunities to utilize the money across the spectrum at this point. I also agree that that issue regarding with the insurance and so forth for users, I agree that the city needs to look into the appropriate equity application that past policy has had in place. I don't know if I've used my 3 minutes up or not, but I wanted to make sure that there is at least recognition that pickleball is the highest growth activity in the United States at this point, with over 47,000 members to the U.S. Pickleball Association, and we're just one of the small organizations that's trying to provide the appropriate services within our city parks.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Lisa Flores.
Hi, I have a bunch of comments. First off, I have a disabled placard, and when I go into roading, which I'm going to be doing on Wednesday, you know, I really just don't like my license plate red. That just gives me the EBGBs. And also, too, on behalf of the over 200 members of my two dog groups, just want to let you know that you've placed the meter where we're supposed to pay the money for parking too far away from the dog park. And that's going to cause problems. When you're dealing with little chihuahuas, the last thing they want to do is pay for parking. They want to get in that fence. They want to go run. They want to sniff butt. You know, they want to play. Second thing is also, too, I hope that in your funding mechanism that you have for the Parks Department, that there is actually adequate cultural training, because you need actually cultural competency going on in a department that has never had it. This is the issue at Vanlin is not the first issue, as well as competency training for the rangers, because I see the ranger classification as part of the ladder to go into the police department. And one of the things I would love to see in the whole hiring process of these rangers is that you guys actually give preference points to the people that you're going to assign to the parks. Why aren't, you know, I don't want to see somebody from Clovis coming in for an almost $80,000 a year job. I want to see somebody a block and a half from the park be hired. You know, because there's nothing like community ownerships of the parks and the facilities. And also, too, for the parks director, you know, I've been asking for years, and I mean years. It's more than 5 years now, for the parking plan for Roding Park. And everybody says there's one. The zoo was supposed to have one. They've never produced it. Sophie and Planning never produced it. Ace Parking never produced it. So where is it? Because I've actually done car tallies on Memorial Day weekend, on Labor Day, on Easter, and I hope you have a lot of people out there on Memorial Day weekend. I hope you have traffic lockdown, because literally Roding Park on Olive is a death trap, and it is just a matter of time before you have a rear end situation coming and hitting you. And you also have cars all the way out to the off ramp of 99, if not backed up on the off ramp of 99. So, you know, there's some major issues with high use weekends. So, you know, it's great that you're going to have these little kiosks and things, but, you know, a majority of the people there are cash and carry people. The other also problem that
I'm
you
sorry,
also
Lisa Flores, to interrupt you, but your 3 minutes is up.
Well, I just had one more point, that there's no free parking at Roding. There's only 20, maybe 20 at most outside the park. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Baldev.
Hello, thank you for allowing me the time to make these comments. I want to say thank you to the commissioners for voluntarily serving on the Measure P board here. It's not such an easy task to adhere to the community's need. So one of the things that I want to bring up is, because there's a lot of talk about inclusivity and cultural competency. I feel like the city is usually typically years behind catching up to what the numbers actually show. One of the things I want to point out, especially the parks west of 99, there's a lot of cricket activity that's happening, yet City of Fresno has not invested any money into cricket. The gentleman earlier talked about pickleball, how there's an organization with 47,000 members. Cricket, I mean, I like to claim that cricket is probably the fastest growing sport in the US. There's a whole bunch of organized teams that are taking place. So for example, go to JSK Park, which is just once in Colorado Park. Go there during any time, any day, you will find at least somebody playing cricket. We do have facilities such as the sports complex on Jensen that is really not being utilized at all. Some of these can be converted into cricket fields really quickly. Before, we're talking about investing money into the park rangers and everything else. Some of these issues can be resolved so much easier and with a lot less of money. For example, if you have more courts for volleyball and also for other sports, there wouldn't be a need for a ranger to resolve a dispute, or you wouldn't have an issue with reservations. So currently, cricket players are utilizing baseball fields, softball fields, wherever they're available, whether it being parks, whether it being in schools, and kind of convert them and play cricket on it. So this is something that the Fresno Cricket Club has been asking the city since 2011. So like the gentleman said earlier, this is the time to use Measure P money for non-traditional items. And here's an opportunity to be inclusive and provide the Fresno cricket community at least with a pitch that they can use. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Pedro Cruz.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening, folks. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak, and everybody for taking the time to serve in this commission. For the budget ask, I did speak on this at the last meeting, but I do want to bring back the points of looking into allocating some money for a participatory budget process, a youth fee waiver program, and also more of a resident sample survey. I feel like Measure P is a great opportunity, right, to not only improve our park system, but transform our city as a whole. And our city has a really hard time listening to its residents and actually meeting the residents where they're at. And I'm afraid that Measure P will be a continuation of that, and which would be a really, really unfortunate, because there's a lot of healing that needs to take place. There's a lot of opportunities that need to be created. And the way I feel that the funds are being allocated right now is more in a competitive process. And unfortunately, I don't think it should be like that. We need to meet people where they're at, and a participatory budget process can open up the door to do exactly that. Yeah, so that's all I had to say. Please really look into the way that we include all people. I know one sport that I've really advocated for and really see an opportunity to grow in the city is just looking into our soccer community. We already have more than 20,000 people that play the sport, but if you look at our parks, it looks like we feel like we're second-class citizens, right? A lot of people that I play the sport with, it's a lot of humble people, right? We do what we can with very little, so we're not coming in here with numbers, but I hear these frustrations every time I go kick the ball somewhere or I engage with folks. So we just really need to make an effort to meet people where they're at. And the 3 budget proposals that I suggested to you, I think could really accomplish that. And it's not just about one sport or another. I just really think that we need to meet people where they're at and have a more thorough plan forward. But thank you all for your time, and thank you again for serving.
Thank you. Next is Brandy.
Hello, thank you so much for this time. I wanted to actually, I was going to bring up the same thing that Pedro brought up regarding the participatory budgeting engagement process and representative sample survey. I really appreciate the fact that people on this commission mentioned for the parks rangers, the idea of having community input and engagement on there, and that needs to be expanded. I think that investment in ensuring that those who are underrepresented and those who have been participating, who have been those who have that haven't been haven't been reached out to, but would have a vested interest in participation are included in community engagement. And I appreciate this proposal that they've brought forth because of the fact that the majority of the community, especially those who are underrepresented, are not, don't know about opportunities to be able to engage in these things, and would love to be able to bring them to the table with their ideas and what is important to their families or their neighborhoods. So please consider that as something that would make a major asset in Measure P being successful. I also agree with the voucher program. I don't have a lot of knowledge about, I think that it would be, I mean, I used to be a recreation leader back in the day in my early 20s and know how important it is and don't want income to be a barrier. So I ask that you would include a voucher program for kids to be able to afford to be able to participate in your projects. And I don't know exactly what programs you've had, but I would love to see, would ask for investment in art program, in art classes, and bring in local artists and resources, as well as expansion of STEM and STEM opportunities, be able to partner with Fresno State or Kings Canyon to bring in people to be able to have a quality program. I've seen a STEAM program, which is STEM plus art, in another city, and would love to see investment in these kind of projects for kids. I support the purchase of the Measure P, the Tower Theater as arts investment, having been a major cultural arts asset for all of Fresno, and a place where people not only go for entertainment, but it's also been a venue for local people to be able to share their art and benefit the community. So it would be an extremely valuable investment. So, and last, I want to mention, thank you for letting me know about the social media page and newsletter. I did note on the website that that this meeting was posted today, and would love to be able to see things more advanced, especially more specifically mentioning when there are public hearings, because I know that there's other people who would love to be involved, but would need to get more advance notice. But the posts are beautiful. The videos, I know, make it more engaging, and would love to see that more access to the community with your wonderful work and programs. So
Brandy,
thank you.
I'm sorry, thank you. Next up is Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Zhang. I'm the CEO of the Hopeful Encounter, and we're a nonprofit here in Fresno. We serve the youths and young adults in the South Asian community in recreational youth leadership development here. We host the second largest Hmong sports tournament here in Fresno, second only to the Hmong New Year's. And I want to just ask a question about the new multi-purpose posts that will be going up at Vanlin Park. I'd like to know if the nets will be made available as well for all of the different types of net sports, or is it just the poles? And I ask this question because I want to make sure that those poles are going to be usable. If the nets are not provided, would that indicate that the sport teams would need to make those purchases themselves, which would cause a barrier? And if they didn't, the poles would not be practical. The community has been kept in the dark about the solution discussions, and it would be a waste of city money to purchase and install a device that would not be usable by the community. And so this process needs to be done with the residents who will be using the facilities, not an internal discussion. And then I want to address the incident that occurred at Vanlin regarding the signage and the response by taking the sign down and then responding that the players may utilize the reservation system. Okay. Not only is this response dismissive, but it has not been mentioned to the community that they're able to return back to the first come, first serve process. And that was the understanding that I'm getting in the meeting tonight. The community is under the understanding that the reservation system needs to be used. And this clearly shows that whatever communication method the city is using to relay messages to the community needs to be improved. The incident at Vanlin was impulsive, careless, and hurtful. And it just to perpetuate the trauma that has impacted our community for generations. And so I've been speaking with youths, young adults, and parents from the volleyball community, and their stories and messages are all they all carry the same undertone, and that is that the city has done more damage than they have done to serve our community since the years that we've been here. And the 2017 Parks Master Plan identifies volleyball as one of Fresno's highest demanded sports, and the demand is higher than the national average. And so I would recommend that a budget direction motion for park staff to conduct a feasibility study specifically for a green space facility that would achieve the City of Fresno solution, counting the discrimination against the Asian American communities in Fresno. The city committed to work with community-based organizations in providing safe public spaces for Asian community members, especially elders, women, and youth, that promote their physical and mental wellness, as well as healing in cultural responsive ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kelvin.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Calvin, and I just want to share something with you guys because I don't think there's an understanding of the magnitude of the Hmong volleyball community and its impact around the nation, and how we, the Hmong community, are making a name for Fresno, and why the city of Fresno needs to support this volleyball community. Teams from the volleyball community such as Primetime, Titan, and many others compete in North Carolina, Oklahoma, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and many other states representing Fresno. For many years, teams train and build a relationship at these parks, such as Vanlin, to go compete. They are leading the way in sportsmanship, leadership, and teamwork for youths locally and nationally. And this is something that needs to be supported, and incidents like the one at Vanlin serve only to tear down the leadership of these teams. I would like to recommend the City of Fresno allocate money to help build a space for the Hmong volleyball community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Rajdeep.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Rajdeep. I'm currently walking my dog by the Granville homes, and I was just wanting to bring up the point that there should be more parks around this area so that other people can walk. I just saw a lady bike on the main road because there's no designated paths and stuff. And also by the new Veterans Road that's being built, there's a walkway that I love and enjoy walking on, but all I see is dead grass everywhere I go, and there's sharp rocks everywhere. There's actually nothing to make the walkways look nice or enjoyable, right? Also, I feel like railings of some sort and trash cans can be put up there eventually when the road fully gets developed, because I feel like there's gonna be a lot of littering and stuff, and with the current state it's in, it doesn't seem to be getting any better. Also, they plan on bringing more traffic in, so I think a park around this area would be great, as I saw some elderly people sitting at a grassy area with tables that they bought themselves, and there's actually nothing provided for this neighborhood or community. With the new veterans plan, they're splitting two communities, and like I feel like I have to walk across the new road every day now, and it's pretty dangerous stuff. So I feel like a nice walking area or something guarded should be added in that area. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Next, we have Lawrence. Lawrence Mua.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, this is Lawrence Mua. I would like to elaborate on Susan Zhang's topic of the reservation of our local parks. I've been an athlete for about 2 years within the Hmong volleyball community, and I'm addressing the situation over at Vanlin Park and all the parks of Fresno with the subject of the day-to-day use. I believe it was brought up that the parks are going to be regulated to certain sports during a certain time. I personally don't believe that the park should be regulated to a certain sport within a certain time, because not every day are the tennis courts or football fields, for example, are being utilized for its interest, and regulating it would be a waste of that facility or park, because what if, for example, there are no tennis players between the hours of 3 to 6 p.m.? That would just be a waste of time and space that could be utilized by other groups during that time, unless it's reserved to the city, of course. So what is the answer for the day-to-day use so that we can all enjoy the parks when they're open? And is it still, first come, first serve? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Erica.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I wanted to propose the allocation of $5 million for a participatory budgeting engagement process that would city budgeting and city projects. I also wanted to propose that that 300,000 be allocated for youth activity fee waiver voucher program to serve those in disenfranchised and poorer communities, and for this voucher not to only be exclusive to park programming, but would include all other programming available to youth. I also would like to propose $75,000 to conduct to have a better response than like the SurveyMonkey link for all residents of Fresno. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair McCoy, at this time, we do not have any more public comment.
Okay, thank you. We will now adjourn.
Wait, Chair, I'm sorry, Chair McCoy, and I may have omitted this from your script, but we should go to the commissioners as well to see if they have any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I was ready to go.
I know, I was ready because I thought maybe I had forgotten it.
Okay, I apologize to my fellow commissioners. Do you guys have any comments or questions in regards to the hearing?
So now you may close the hearing and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Now,
One second. Staff, is this hearing on every agenda? Will this item be on the next agenda as well?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, that was my question. I didn't know if everyone else knew and it was just me. But up until what day, or for how long will this be on every agenda for? And what, up until the budget, actual meeting for that, or how long is that for?
Yeah, great question, Commissioner. There's no hard deadline. So right now we see value in having it on there, and as do all of you, and you've expressed that. So we'll continue to have it on there until the budget's approved by council. And at that time, I still agree that we need a standing item to include community input. So maybe we just tweak the title. Maybe it's not specifically related to fiscal year 23 building, but we can definitely tweak that so we have a standing item to receive community input.
Okay, so this item was specifically, or it was more like a general, do you have any suggestions, or, if this was the item that I had requested be put on the agenda, basically, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right, just want to clarify. Thank you for that. I think we heard a whole lot of wonderful things today from our Hmong community, from our pickleball community, from our cricket community, north, south, east, west. But all around, this is the result I wanted. I did want folks to have the space where they can come and, whatever they feel is more, most important to them, to their community, that they can come and, give input on that. That being said, something that really caught my eye recently was the item that was that folks had made comment on last meeting and this meeting too, regarding the survey for public input, actually allocating funding for that to make it a more research-driven survey. And so to my fellow commissioners, and maybe if this is even something I can ask city staff if it's even feasible to recommend a survey that is actually research driven and uses scientific method than an open survey that is only really open to those who have access to it. If we can make that happen, that would be wonderful.
And Commissioner Singh, I would encourage you, so you all have that second stab at the fiscal year 23 budget. So if that is a recommendation that you would like to make to City Council for consideration in putting funds towards, so that there's resources to do such a survey, that would be an appropriate place to include that.
And sorry, when is that happening?
So Assistant City Manager Miller expressed tonight that the mayor's budget is going to be released on May 25th, and that we will likely have a special meeting before your regularly scheduled meeting in June, where you all will be able to discuss the budget that the mayor's released, and then ultimately make your second set of recommendations. That would be a good place to recommend to City Council if you would like to put money towards that survey and resources to do that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Dr. Akuda, did you have a question or a comment?
I did have a quick comment. I just want to thank the community members for their time and coming and speaking to this commission. I know everyone's time is precious, so I want our community members to know that it's appreciated.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments or from our commissioners? Going once. All right, y'all, we did a good job. I will adjourn this meeting at 7:57. Enjoy the rest of the evening with your families, and I see you next time we meet. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.